So many of our advisors in the food space said, you're crazy, no one's gonna spend $9.95 for a jar of mayonnaise. This was all coming out of my paycheck, and I was willing to roll the dice.
This is Mark Sisson and Morgan Zanotti, co-founders of Primal Kitchen, a key player in the better-for-you condiments, sauces, and dressings space. After seeing an opening in the market, the two decided to create ones that they felt were missing, starting with a $10 jar of avocado oil-based mayonnaise.
At the time we launched Primal Kitchen, every condiment in the grocery store had either soybean, canola, sunflower seed, and/or sugar. We launched in a category where the closest price competitor was probably like $3 for a jar of mayonnaise. We thought, look, we want this product. We're gonna test the market and see if other people want it. And if they do great, we have a business. If not, we shut it down.
The U.S. sauces and condiments market is valued today at over $31 billion and is expected to grow an additional $5 billion by 2030. Convinced the products would sell despite a high price point, Mark brought forward his personal profits from his pre-existing supplements company, Primal Nutrition, to start a new business, Primal Kitchen. There are three numbers to look out for in the story. $2 million, the amount of money Mark used from his profits to start the company. $200 million, the amount Kraft Heinz paid in 2019 to acquire Primal Kitchen. And nearly $250 million, the company's gross retail sales for 2024. This is Founder Effect. Once a competitive endurance athlete, Mark has an extensive history with nutrition and exercise. In 1997, he started a supplements company called Primal Nutrition. And in 2006, he started a nutrition blog called Mark's Daily Apple.
I've always been interested in health and fitness. I was an elite athlete for a while and always chasing performance, looking for ways to improve my times. That got me really interested in food in general and supplements in particular. Welcome to my kitchen.
At its peak, Mark says that his blog was getting 3.5 million unique viewers a month, and that his supplements company was making between $7 and $9 million a year in gross revenue. In 2009, he self-published his book, The Primal Blueprint.
Between the blog and the book and the seminars that I was doing, I had a number of different ways in which to, express this way of living that I thought was a great template. I realized I was writing so much about food, and I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to make some better for you sauces and salad dressings and condiments, things that maybe the world had never seen before. And I spent 10 years building a platform before I had a product to launch. It made it a lot easier to launch a product into that space.
In 2013, Mark met Morgan at PrimalCon, a 3-day experience in California centered around the principles of Mark's Primal Blueprint. Morgan was working in marketing for one of the event's sponsors and, at one point during the weekend, gave a ride to Mark and his wife.
I was an early follower of Mark's work and a big fan of what he was doing at Primal Blueprint at the time in his blog, Mark's Daily Apple. I was just in a very Los Angeles 28-year-old free-spirited phase of life.
We sat in her car and talked a little bit more succinctly about the food space and what she was doing, and she impressed me with her loquaciousness and her just her personality. I thought she was, a great person in general and very bubbly and very knowledgeable about the space.
4 months later, Morgan received a call from Mark. He later hired Morgan as a marketing consultant for $50 an hour. Then, after Mark's original plans to found the company with a professional chef fell through, Mark offered Morgan to start full-time at ground zero and co-found the business with him. For initial funding, Mark drew from his personal profits from his supplements company, Primal Nutrition.
When I started Primal Kitchen, it was within the confines of Primal Nutrition. I was netting between $2 and $3 million a year. I didn't take the money out. I didn't take out after-tax dollars to start a new company. I elected to cut back on the amount of income I was making. I decided to cut back and allocate $1 million a year out of what I would have taken as income to start this new company.
Mark says that he also started a line of credit that he was the personal guarantor on. If anything went wrong, he was personally responsible. Over the years, this would grow to $9 million.
That was always hanging over my head was this huge line of credit. Because we were one of the largest buyer of avocado oil in the world, that required tremendous amounts of capital, which we didn't have because we were running the company internally as kind of break even. That was a difficult thing to sleep on every night for a couple of years.
When deciding on the company's first product, Mark initially wanted to start with a salad dressing or ketchup, but eventually went with the company's flagship product, avocado oil-based mayonnaise.
When we introduced this avocado oil-based mayonnaise, it kind of transformed that space. It was becoming sort of the holy grail of the paleo world, of the healthy eating world. It was a combination of naivete and hubris that allowed me to think that we could launch this relatively expensive mayonnaise. Rather than start with a price point and back our way into ingredients and figure out the compromises that we would need to make, I said, let's build this from the ground up. Let's build the best possible product. Then we'll figure out what we need to sell it for.
In February 2015, Primal Kitchen officially launched online with its avocado oil-based mayonnaise. The company's first order of 12,000 units sold out in 1 week. A few months later, its products began selling in the Rocky Mountain region of Whole Foods, and ultimately nationwide within the first year.
We did a Twitter campaign and we had a hashtag Hold the Canola. We didn't sit down and put a deck together and do a competitive analysis. I mean, first of all, there were no competitors even to compare ourselves to, but to be quite honest, we weren't really tracking that. And we were looking at the company holistically. It's not like Mark and I were sitting down every month looking at the P&L of Primal Kitchen specifically. It was kind of like a entrepreneurial experiment.
We didn't raise money from other people, so we weren't beholden to investors to show them some amazing growth and/or some profitability. I think the only directive to my team was just don't lose a lot of money, but let's grow as quickly as we can into these different areas.
By the end of the first year, in addition to its mayonnaise, Primal Kitchen began selling 2 salad dressings, bottled avocado oil, and collagen bars. It started selling sauces soon after. According to Primal Kitchen, it was around break-even year 2 and ultimately earned $50 million in revenue in the 4th year of business. Then, in 2018, just 3 years after starting it, Mark and Morgan started looking to sell their business.
I had always planned on growing this business to sell. I was in my early 60s when I started the company, so I wanted to build it to sell from the beginning. You hit a point where there's no more that you can bring to this party that somebody else with greater access to money and distribution couldn't do a much better job.
We hired an investment banker in 2018 in the spring, and then we did a 6-month process. Kraft Heinz rose to the top pretty early on. They were the first person we ever met with from a partnership perspective on taking the business to the next level.
Now, we had 3 other bidders in the process, but Kraft was the winning bid. We had a deal over the Thanksgiving weekend of 2018.
In January 2019, Kraft Heinz acquired Primal Kitchen for $200 million. While Mark would remain the face of the brand, his role changed to an advisory capacity. Morgan stayed on as president of the company under Kraft Heinz for 5 years after the acquisition. She moved into an advisory role in the spring of 2024.
Mark and I owned 95% of the company at the time in which we sold, which is also super rare in the food and beverage space. I would not have wanted to weather the business storm that was the last 5 years without a partner like Kraft Heinz.
Yeah.
They've been super supportive for us.
Since 2020, the brand has grown significantly under Kraft Heinz, ending 2024 with nearly $250 million in gross retail sales.
A lot of the growth that we've achieved is attributable to Kraft's ability to add distribution channels and marketing support and manufacturing support and all of the things that are real pain points for an entrepreneur. As we set out with this food company, the mission statement was to change the way the world eats. The fact that so many other competitors have entered the space is assisting with that mission statement. My advice would be make sure that your business idea is a good idea. I mean, vet it for proof of concept early on. And if it is a good idea, then give it everything you have and invest in yourself and invest as much as you can in your education, in your marketing, in your brand. And if you persevere, you will succeed. And it may not be next year, it may not be, in 5 years, but at some point, the hard work does pay off.